Welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. It's good to be with you on this Monday afternoon. We are brought to you, as always, by the Center for Progressive Christianity, an incredible place to get all your progressive Christian resource needs. Also by the Christian Left, a nationwide ministry and community for Christian progressives and allies, and the Progressive Christian Alliance, a movement denomination that rallies together around the principles of justice, respect, and inclusion. I'm joined, as always, by Mark Sandlin. How you doing today, Mark?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine and ready to talk about the Mandalorean and Grogu. And it's
Indeed.
been, what, three weeks or so since that came out. So if you haven't seen it, I mean, you've had ample time.
Right.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be too upset if we spoil this for you, which we will do
Right.
if you continue to watch. We will spoil this for you because we take great joy in spoiling things. And in order to really get into the spoiling, I know we're going to need some alcohol. Do you have some with you today, Mark?
I do. I made something up. I'm calling it a Grogu bourbon smash. So the idea started with I wanted something green with bourbon. And I thought, I remember hearing that Mountain Dew was originally created as a mixer for bourbon. And I thought, well, Mountain Dew's green. And so anyway, it turns out Mountain Dew's not that green. But it's Mountain Dew, bourbon, lime juice, a little bit of simple syrup. And then I've added mint for a little herbal addition, and then of course put some Grogu ears on it. I had to go there. So I'm calling it a Grogu bourbon smash. What about you? What direction did you go in?
You know, just seeing that, I can almost hear the theme song. You know, the Grogu coming up. You know, as he's coming up on the screen.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. So I actually found a cocktail called "This Is the Way," and it leans into kind of the space western vibe of the Mandalorian.
Okay,
and it's basically a Oaxacan old fashioned. It's got tequila, mezcal, lime juice, and bitters. And so I've got my This Is the Way right here. Cheers to you, Mark.
Cheers, sir.
Let's have a drink. Is it good?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'll take it.
Take it? All right, good.
Yeah,
all right, let's sip some more and come. What? Not bad?
No, I like it. Let's go.
Good. Okay, yeah, let's go. Let's have a sip. Let's come back. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Thank you for sticking with us and joining us in our Geek Out segment. We're going to take a little bit of time, let our geek flags fly, enjoy talking about the show itself. But we'll try not to spend too much time here so we can move on, put a little more extra time into the next segment where we'll talk about the theology and the political implications that we might see in the show. So I'm not going to go too much into describing this show. It is, we've already had 3 seasons of the Mandalorian raising little Grogu, or baby Yoda, as some people like to call him. So this is just the next installation of what happens after season 3. I am curious though. So this one is a movie. We started with 3 seasons on television. As a movie, tell me, on a scale of Jar Jar Binks to The Empire Strikes Back, where does this movie land for you?
Somewhere in the middle. I think. Though, in retrospect, episode 1 with Jar Jar Binks, like, you get rid of Jar Jar Binks, it's like Duel of the Fates, man. There's still, I'm not sure there's a better lightsaber battle than Qui-Gon
Pretty good,
Jinn
right?
and and Obi-Wan
Well,
Kenobi with Darth
that's
Maul,
specifically why I said on a scale of Jar Jar
Jar
Binks,
Jar Binks, I know.
not the
Not
movie,
Phantom Menace.
just
Yeah.
the character itself to Empire Strikes Back,
I
which
know.
may be the
I know.
pinnacle of Star Wars. You know,
Look, man. Look. Okay, so I was reading a review of
yeah.
when because this wasn't super well received, right? It was.
Mm,
I think the general consensus was people thought it was kind of fun to watch. The visuals were pretty impressive, but
yeah,
it wasn't a great Star Wars movie, right?
right.
And one of the
Yeah.
reviews said, "Hey, look, you should go see this with kids and watch the wonder in their eyes when you watch it
Yeah.
because they're seeing Star Wars." And so I had done that. I took my 10-year-old and my 5-year-old to see this,
Which
and
means had either of them seen a Star Wars in the theater? I mean, it's been 6 years since we had a Star Wars.
right? So no, not in the theater.
I didn't figure so. Yeah.
They've seen all the Star Wars like
Yeah.
at home,
Of
but
course.
not in the
Of
theater.
course. Because you're a
And so
good parent.
of course I am. I'm doing my responsibility here. I'm
That's
trying to
right.
raise my kids right. And it
Exactly.
really was after we had Star Wars Day at church, like a Star Wars Sunday, that
Mhm.
like we had Darth Vader come like up from smoke in the baptistry, as you
I
do
like it.
at church.
I like it. Of
And my
course.
youngest
Yeah.
one became obsessed with Star Wars for a while, and so
I
it was a
love it.
whole thing. But they hadn't ever seen it in the movies,
No. Oh, yeah.
in the movie theater, and so they were like enthralled. They were into it,
Yeah.
like they loved. So it kind of depends, because did I see my kids fall in love with Star Wars anew watching it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah. Well, there you
could
go.
we just like lift this movie up and not have it and still be cool with Star Wars? Yeah. But I mean, like I did enjoy watching it. Like
Yeah.
I had a good time. I was entertained, and I
Mhm.
actually, I guess, kind of felt like I've um felt for most of the Mandalorian run, which is like it's uh it's fun to watch, and it
Yeah.
was fun for me to watch. I'd put it right in the middle. I'm not
Fair
not
enough.
Jar Jar Banks. I'm not gonna look back and be like, ugh, why did they do that? But on the other hand, it's forgettable. I'm
Yeah.
not probably even going to remember they made it in 5 years.
Right.
How about you?
Yeah.
Where do you place it on the Jar
Well,
Jar to Empire scale?
I
I
put
like
it
this
in
scale, by the way. From now on,
uh,
this is the definitive
great.
Star Wars
This is
scale.
right.
Jar
I
Jar
can
to Empire.
Empire. I completely agree.
Yeah,
When it occurred to me, I was like, that's one of my favorite things
that's
I've
good,
come
man.
up with recently.
Good.
I really
Yeah.
like it. So listen, I don't think where I'm getting ready to compare it to, I don't think
Yeah.
this one is as bad of a movie as it got reviewed as, but it's not a great movie. I think it comes in just above Solo.
I was
I
gonna say
like
you're gonna
Solo.
say Solo. I knew it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't hate Solo like most people did. It comes in just
Yeah.
above it. But it is one of those movies where I was entertained the entire time. The entire time. And there's so many Star Wars Easter eggs in it nonstop. So there's lots to pay attention to and smile about. But if you pick it up and throw it away, you don't add, subtract, lose anything in the Star Wars lore because this movie doesn't exist anymore. And that it's kind of like does it do we always have to be adding to the lore, making it larger and bigger? Yeah, it adds small parts to it, but it's not adding anything major that we would find noticeably missing if we got rid of it. So yeah, I kind of fall in the same place. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. But honestly, I have to agree with the pundits who were saying it should have stayed on television. This should have been season 4. So,
Yeah.
having said that, does it ultimately feel more like a movie or a really expensive episode of The Mandalorian to you?
No, it felt like an episode. And I mean, but I knew going in, even before the movie was officially released, we heard
Yeah,
this is basically an extended episode of The
yeah,
Mandalorian, and it was. That's what it felt like. And
Yeah.
I guess too, where I land in the Star Wars lore thing is, I think at this point, I'm happy, even if we're not like adding to it, as long as we're
Yeah,
not like
exactly.
detracting from it. I think about like,
Right.
what was it, The Rise of Skywalker, the last of that the
Yeah.
sequel trilogy, where like the Emperor becomes Rey's grandpa or whatever it was, and like okay, this is
Come
so
on.
contrived that
Yeah.
this is just detracting from the lore. So
Yeah.
I think right now, as long as we're not doing any of that crap, I'm okay with it. But yeah, it felt like a long episode. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, while it felt like a long episode, since really all I was there to do was to have a good time, to take off like my Star Wars superfan hat and be
Right.
with my kids and watch the movie, like it was it was okay. I was okay with that.
Yeah.
I was okay with
Well, I
that.
mean, I understand that the outgoing CEO of Disney was the one that kind of said, you're going to make this into a movie. Didn't
Yeah.
really give them much of a choice. It sounds like they already had season 4 figured out. So they took out all of the big Empire parts that were going to be
Yeah.
in the show and turned it into a movie. Do you think that was the right call? Well, ultimately, because you said, hey, look, my kids got to see Star Wars for the first time on the big screen. I took off my fan hat. I did enjoy it. I got to see the joy and the excitement in
Yeah.
their eyes. So ultimately, did the outgoing CEO, was it the right call?
No. I mean, it really wasn't. It was
Uh,
fun to watch. I'm not mad they made it, but would this have worked better as a season 4? It would have.
Yeah.
It really would have. It wasn't it was fun to watch on the big screen. It was fun to
Right.
see them both, but would it have worked better as kind of serialized telling? Yeah, it would have. I think that's one of the reasons that the Mandalorian has worked so well, is just because uh, the types of stories that it's telling lend itself to TV more than
Yeah.
movies. So yeah, I think that's where it should have landed. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of think that this was very much the wrong choice. A matter of fact,
Yeah.
I feel like we lost the fact that we have been told that they took out Thrawn, they took out Empire, they took out a lot of parts that were going to be part of this story that I think made it lesser and weaker of a story. Um, I don't like the fact that they did that. I think it was a big mistake. That should have. I almost wish that they would act like they didn't do it and just go ahead and make season 4 and add those
Yeah.
things back in. I really kind of that would make me pretty happy. So
Maybe they could take this footage, they could add it in,
right,
like this is that's
add it in and then
economical.
cut
Yeah.
in the rest of the good, like the story they were
Yeah.
going to tell. I'm all for
Yeah.
that. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so look, from the moment that Grogu was introduced,
Mhm.
just the fact people instantly called him little baby Yoda.
Yeah.
He essentially was, cute merchandise with force powers. I'm
Yeah.
curious. Do you think moving him to the big screen shifted that any? Did he become more than just cute merchandise with force powers? I mean, we had what I think of as a whole episode, because this was about 5 episodes of Mandalorian, and one
Yeah.
episode was clearly the Grogu episode, where we were just going to get Grogu out in
Just
the
Grogu.
woods trying
Yeah.
to save Din Djarin and doing his thing. Did being on the big screen and having that kind of long moment that was just him, did it begin to move him past just kind of cute merchandise with force powers?
I thought it was interesting in terms of character development to see such an extended time of just Grogu.
Yeah.
Did it move him beyond the merchandising? I don't think so. I think putting this in a movie actually did the opposite. That him being in the movie in a way that was probably more, because, like, for instance, I didn't have my kids; they didn't watch The Mandalorian, but I did take them to go see the movie, and so
Mhm.
did we come home with more Grogu merchandise? We sure did. And so I think that, which, by the way, my youngest, you can't call him Baby Yoda. It's got to be Grogu. Like the kids in
Good.
preschool, they're like, "Oh, you've got Baby Yoda," and she's like, "That is Grogu."
Grogu.
So yeah,
I love this kid. Oh,
I know it.
fantastic.
I know it. So,
That's
so I actually think that it maybe leaned heavier into the merchandising because of the because of the movie. But I did appreciate that time. I did feel like we saw some character growth. How about you? What do you think of it all?
I kind of find it a mixed bag. I do think because it was
Yeah.
on the bigger screen that it almost amps up the merchandising of it. I do think that that long extended scene where Grogu is more than the baby in the baby basket and being cared for and being a child and clicking buttons he's not supposed to click and eating cookies he's not supposed to eat. I did think he started to grow up a little bit. What
Yeah.
we saw him move, like his character developed some, and that for me did feel a little bit about moving away from just this cute little thing that we can merchandise. So I liked that. I want to see a lot more of it. I don't want us to have Grogu as child. I think he's 80 now. In whatever Yoda beings are, they
Yeah.
you know they get. I think the lore is he's about 80 right now. I need him to start becoming more of a teenager and less of a baby for
Yeah.
me to continue to be engaged there. Will they do
Oh, that
that?
would be kind of fun. Teenage
Yeah,
Grogu.
yeah. Like
I can see that.
little rebellious, a little like,
Yeah.
but wanting to be autonomous and strike out on their own. And we saw some kind of making his own choices, doing the things that needed to be doing, and I liked that. I appreciated that development of that particular character through that. Listen, I've got about 10 more questions that we could geek out about. We don't have that kind of time, so what I'm going to do is stop it right there. I think that's a pretty good discussion. At least gets us thinking about it. We're going to take a quick drop, refresh our drinks if needed. And on the other side, we'll come back and talk about the politics and theology of the Mandalorian and Grogu.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We have geeked out, and now it's time to get into the serious stuff, the Theopolitico segment, where we talk about theology and politics. And this is where I want to start, Mark. So, Din Djarin, he grows up in this Children of the Watch, this kind of fundamentalist sect of Mandalorians. Right. And I'm curious, do you see any similarities and any parallels between the way that he grows up in this sect and real life religious fundamentalism?
Oh, well, I think 100%, the sect he grows up in is literally taught not to question. You learn the rules, you obey the rules, and you live by the rules. If that's not the pure definition of fundamentalism, and the reason his sect does it is because it provides consistency and control over all of the folks, which in their particular world where they're fighting a battle, where they're kind of warrior clan, it makes some sense that you would need that in order to be successful. Unfortunately, that's also how fundamentalist Christians see it, is that they're in a war and they're in a battle with all of culture, with all folks. And that's why they do it too, because they want to control those followers. And so, this is the way. It rings like conservative Christian stuff for a reason, right? That is the way. I am the way. I am the, like, there's a reason I think that language was chosen and used. So yeah, I think there's very strong parallels. maybe even intentionally to be commentary on fundamental Christianity in the world today. I mean, is it crazy to think that they looked at fundamentalism in Christianity and went, maybe we can tell a story that will shed some light, pull the curtains back a little bit?
I mean, it might be crazy if it weren't everywhere in our culture, if it weren't on the
Yeah,
rise and we weren't seeing it so much, the
yeah,
Christian nationalism that continues to rise as well, clearly an outpouring of fundamentalism and
yeah.
an unwillingness to question. And I think it's also telling that Mandalorians aren't to remove their helmet, right? Like their
Mhm.
true self is always hidden behind this
Hidden, yeah.
exterior of what they're
There's
projecting. It,
there's a homogenous look to all of them.
mm,
We're all the same.
yeah,
And
that's
there
right.
is that
That's right.
in fundamentalism is everyone is the same. There is no matter of fact, those who veer off and become who they really are or show out a little more are shunned, right?
Yeah, that's right. And if you see them, right, it's been a
Right.
disgrace. Like if the helmet comes off, if you
Right.
see who they really are, then
And
that's a disgrace.
and if so,
That's
the only way that you can be back in graces is to go be baptized in the waters.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
mean, there's some,
Yep. There,
I
there's
mean,
there's a lot of parallels, right? But I
yeah.
think this interests me because I get folks who reach out all the time who are like breaking away from fundamentalism or beginning to
Mhm.
say like, hey, I'm coming in touch, I think, with who I really am, and I've been told that who I really am is not okay my entire life. How do I
Absolutely.
reconcile this? What does the Bible actually say about this? And when I tell people things like, hey, the Bible says you're part of the Imago Dei, part of the
Mhm.
divine
Of the image
image,
of God.
and
Yeah.
that when you're yourself, that's like reflecting God. That they've like never heard that before. That like it's a gift
Sadly.
to
Yeah.
be your true self. And
Yeah.
so I think that that like the vulnerability of the armor coming off of fundamentalism
Mhm.
is really symbolic, which makes me wonder, Mark, if
Yeah.
one of the things that's happening in The Mandalorian is that it's a story about like deconstruction, and this is
Mm.
something that we're talking a lot about, in
Yeah.
our circles, right? We've got a man who's raised in a religious tradition that is very rigid. He
Mhm.
learns faithfulness, but it's not blind obedience. And
Right.
so he learns about loving another person as well, so or another being that love
Mhm.
transforms him. So I'm wondering, Mark, could we look at the Mandalorian as deconstruction? Is that a stretch, or is that
I don't
something happening here?
I don't think it is. I mean, I'm not sure that it is actually deconstruction as much as an argument for deconstruction being okay and needed. So I don't know
Mm,
if we're actually seeing the full deconstruction. Although I will say, one of the things that we progressives sometimes get all caught up in is sort of the scholastic intellectual parts of deconstruction.
no, no.
I'm always saying things that people just think are nuts. So I get it. I get it. Um, one of the things I do like about the way that this is approaching deconstruction is approaching deconstruction through relationship, which I think is really important. It grounds it and it makes it a little more solid and more less ephemeral. It's something you can hold on to. You can look at the two of them together. It is, and his care for Grogu is what pushes his move towards some deconstruction and moving himself away from some of the harder core understandings of who he is, supposed to be. This is the way. Um, I mean, don't you think that some of that is there?
Yeah, I think it's there, and I love the thought of deconstruction being about relationship because I mean, even
Mm,
in the story that I was telling earlier, it's about people reaching out and saying, basically saying is
yeah,
like, "Hey, is who I am okay?" And it's really really don't want an exegesis of the text or a
right.
scholarly explanation. Uh, Although, I have to stop myself from saying, "Oh, well,
No,
blah 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 blah." Like they don't,
a little of that doesn't
people don't
hurt.
care about that. People want to know that they're okay. People want to
Mhm.
know that they're loved, and
Yeah.
I think you're right that it's the relationship that ends up leading to transformation, and maybe that's
Yeah.
like what faith is about all the way around as we're like deconstructing or reconstructing or just thinking through things differently, whatever it is, that maybe it's just about transformation all along the way. um but I'm curious, Din, his identity has been formed because of this group that he was a part of, right?
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
I'm curious. Even though we see transformation, we see him growing and changing. How much of his identity is shaped by his childhood trauma in Children of the
Mhm.
Watch,
Right.
and um, is it possible for him to let go of that, to move on past that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality of existence is your past shapes your future and your present. So, yeah, of course, it shapes it. The question is, how do you let it shape it? How have you processed it? Are you allowing
Yeah.
it to hold you, to anchor you back in those moments and in that negative space? Or are you using it as a launching pad, as a stepping stone for finding a better, healthier place and putting it within context of the possibilities of the future and the realities of the present? And so I think that we're seeing a little of that happening with him. Uh, but it would honestly, I'd love to see a little bit more because I think it's more helpful for folks to see a character that they identify with and like, because everyone loves the actor. Um, and so you kind of immediately feel a connection to the character. I'd love to see them do a little more with him processing the past, um, honoring it, the parts that are worth honoring it, and then also then processing the parts that are negative and understanding how do I use that, or how do I make sure that I understand that's not me, that was what someone else did, and I can be something different in spite of. And I think we need a little more of that in character development.
Yeah, I agree because we haven't seen a lot of that. But I think
Mm-mm.
one of the things that you said, it really just resonated with me, which was hanging on to the pieces that are helpful and letting go of
Mhm,
the other pieces. And I
mhm.
think that's something that we often forget, is that like there are frequently pieces
Yeah,
that are still helpful, and there are still
sure.
pieces that we can hang on to, and while getting rid of the stuff that's harmful, recognizing the stuff that we don't need, that is holding us back, but letting those things that are helpful kind of build us up. And so I agree, I would like to see more of what what it was that his childhood was like, what it is that informs him, to learn even more
Mhm.
about Mandalorians. I want to
Yeah, I agree.
pivot a little. I want to pivot a little bit because I've been talking a
Oh,
lot about kind of theology and deconstruction and all. But one of the things that's interesting about this show is that takes place after the collapse of the empire, and
mhm,
so I'm curious, what does the collapse of the empire tell us about rebuilding after authoritarianism? And
mhm.
I mean, I'm obviously asking this, Mark, because I'm curious what it's going to look like in the United States if we're ever able to escape this
Yeah.
movement towards authoritarianism, and how we build back to something else.
Wow, what a giant question. Um, I mean, at
Could you
least,
do this in 30 seconds or less? Or
well, I've got 3 minutes. I think I think
timer.
TikTok, TikTok, man. Um, I think one of the things that we learn is that it creates a vacuum. And we see this a lot, particularly in superhero sci-fi, but in sci-fi in general, when we see a strong-handed occupier of whatever kind, whether it's the government, whether it's a heavy-handed mafia type stuff, that when it disappears, it creates a vacuum. And we see a little of that with the Empire. The rebels are at least trying to provide some alternative to it, but they're not very robust, and that does give space for other things to rise up. We're going to see more Thrawn moving forward. We're going to see that kind of stuff. Um, I think the lesson that we need to learn is to have a plan, to have something in place. Don't only focus on the end of the heavy-handed authoritarianism. Think through, what does it need to look like when it does disappear? How do we immediately step in and create and provide something better that will resonate with folks so well that there's not going to be so much of a vacuum that needs to be filled, and give space for other authoritarian types to slide in? So that's the fastest way I can figure out how to answer that. It's a fantastic question, but it's so complex and there's so much more to it. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a great thought, Mark. And I was thinking about this too, not even just in terms of the United States, but the way that we have intervened in other countries and kind of asserted our own imperialism
Mhm.
there. And so, in particular, I'm thinking about a trip I took to Afghanistan, where
Mm,
pretty much everyone in the United States was in agreement that the U.S. should pull out of Afghanistan, right? I mean, like
mhm.
Democrats, Republicans, everyone's like, pull out, pull
Across
out.
the board, yeah.
Right. And so we pulled out of Afghanistan. And of course, what happened was the Taliban immediately took over. And
Yeah.
when I was in Afghanistan and I was going through like Taliban checkpoints and stuff like that, I was asking folks who were with us, hey, what do you think about the United States pulling out of Afghanistan?
Mhm.
And they're like, we felt like you abandoned us because
Mm,
there was nothing. There was just this
mhm.
power vacuum, exactly what you just described, Mark. There was a power vacuum, and of course, it was the terrorists who came in and
Mhm.
filled the vacuum. And so I'm also thinking about the ways that we destabilize places around the world too, because we haven't given enough forethought into even how we help
Right.
people transition, or if we're even capable of doing that
Yeah.
kind of transition at all. And I think in this case, I don't think we hadn't given any thought to any of that, and we weren't even capable. We didn't even understand the culture well enough to help
I'm
with the
I'm
transition of
gonna be
power,
more
even if there
cynical
was
than
one.
that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be more cynical than that. It's not just that we weren't capable, we weren't interested. We weren't there
yeah,
in order to
yeah,
make it better on the other side. We had lots
yeah,
of other motivations of why we were there. They
yeah.
were the wrong ones. So when we pulled
Mm,
out, of course we weren't looking at how are we going to prevent the vacuum of being filled by the bad guys again.
yeah,
That's not
yeah.
why we were there, unfortunately. We just weren't interested in doing that.
Yeah. And the other thing that they said was, when I said, "Well, how do you perceive the United States?" They said, "Well, we liked that we had more freedom with the US here. We didn't like the US bombs." And the guy was telling me a story of finding his relatives,
Mm,
after having
mm,
been bombed in their front yard by the US. So I think imperialism uh, is real, of course, but also I think that's one of the things I love about Star Wars, right? Is that the whole notion of
yeah,
the Empire, it's so relevant both to our current age of imperialism, even though we don't like to talk about it like that,
right.
that our current
It's real.
age of U.S. imperial, but it's real,
Yeah.
and also Jesus's experience that ultimately forms our faith.
Confronted empire all the time. Yeah.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
I've got a bunch more questions about this, and I'd love to delve into this deeper. But if I do, Mark,
Mm, we can't.
we're not going to get, yeah, we're not going to get to go into our next segment, our make me look stupid segment. And if we don't go into that, I mean, we just haven't even had an
What
episode
are we
of
even
the Joy
doing here
Jesus
if we're
show.
not going to go into
I
that?
know. What are we even just drinking, you know? But I mean, honestly,
That's not really
that's
a
still
bad
a
thing.
pretty good, that's a pretty good use of a Monday, right? Right?
Yeah. I'm
So
with you
why don't we
completely.
why don't we have another sip, take a quick break, and come back and try to make each other look stupid?
Welcome back. You're joining us as we already led you into our Make Me Look Stupid segment. This is a segment where we try to ask a question to make our co host look stupid, or sometimes just to admit that we feel stupid, don't have the answer, and would love to hear it, or make them make a prediction so that we can make them look stupid further down the line when it's revealed whether or not they are correct. And I'm not going to be the benevolent host on this segment. I'm going to jump right in. You haven't managed to steal any questions from me, so I want to go ahead. I want to go ahead and ask before you accidentally stumble into one of my questions with your question. And I began to touch on this earlier on in the Geek Out segment. I'm curious. Do you think Grogu will eventually stop being a sidekick and become the main character? And if so, how much time do you give it before that happens?
You know, I don't know if we'll ever see him become the main character, because one of the things that's compelling about him is the relationship with Din Djarin, and so like does that work on its own?
Right.
I don't know, or do we see him like go into other Star Wars media? I don't know. I think it would always kind of feel like something's missing. It's the team, it's a buddy comedy Western thing. That's what. Uh, so I don't know if we'll ever see him like become kind of the main character, but I think what I would like to see is exactly what you were describing earlier. Man,
Yeah.
like the adolescent Grogu.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of ready for the series to pivot
Yeah, to
in
pivot that way.
that way. Yeah, I think I would like to see that. What do you think? Do you think he's got main
No,
character energy? I don't know.
I think when you look at Yoda, yes, as he grows up, he's going to have main character energy. Matter of fact, I think that they are probably already figuring out what way they're going to feature him as a main character.
Yeah.
I do think it's always going to be an orbit of the Mandalorian of Din. I just think that that, like you have pointed out, that relationship is so important, and and it's its own character. The relationship between the two of them is its own character. So you're never going to get rid of it. I think you can morph it, you can shift it, you can have teenager come out. But I do think because of his power set, he becomes more powerful than Din.
Hmm.
And that does kind of force your hand as a storyteller to make him more of a central character. So I think we ultimately get it, but I think they're going to milk it as long as they can figure out. So I'm thinking
Yeah.
it's 5 to 10 years down the road before we ever see something where we feel like, oh, wait a minute, they just shifted him into the main character. But I think we're going to see it. I genuinely do. I think there's too many elements of the character that if you're going to allow him to age and to continue to grow in his skill sets, he kind of has to.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I'm wondering, Mark. My question's kind of related to
Okay,
this.
good.
Okay. I'm curious because as I was sitting there watching the movie, I was
Yeah.
enjoying it. I was watching it with my kids. I was glad they were getting to see it.
I'm so jealous. My kids are like in their late 20s, 30. I
Yeah.
don't get to do that. So I'm so jealous. That would have, I think this is one of the, so for everything that we've kind of
Yeah.
trashed this movie about,
Yeah.
it's almost the perfect movie to watch with your kids because
It
they
really
don't
was.
have to
Yeah.
follow a storyline. They can
No.
just enjoy what's going on. They can be engaged. They can appreciate all the feels of Star Wars. I'm honestly, I'm a little jealous. I think that if there's anything that's great about this movie, it's that it really is the perfect movie to watch with your kids.
Well, and we went to the right theater too, because like the one
Yeah.
we were gonna go to was packed, and then we went to a different one, and like my 5-year-old was like climbing all around on the chairs, and they were having many there aren't really lightsabers in this movie, but they were having kind of like
Right.
lightsaber
All the
battles
little,
and
yeah,
stuff in
yeah.
the aisles, and nobody cared, and so that's how
great.
you
I love it.
experience Star Wars.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
how Star Wars
Fantastic.
should be experienced.
Fantastic.
But
Yeah.
as I was sitting there watching it, I'm like, okay, this is enjoyable and all. But then I was thinking, like, did I even watch The Mandalorian season 3? I'm like, probably I did, right? I mean, we probably talked about it on the
That's
Moonshine
that's
Jesus show.
that's really it's funny because it's so fair.
And so I thought, like, the first season I was really super into. I
Mhm,
loved it. And second
mhm,
season
mhm.
pretty into. Third season I don't remember. What I wondered as I was sitting there watching that movie was,
Yeah.
do we need more Mandalorian? If so, am I even gonna watch it? I guess my question is, Mark, will we have another season of The Mandalorian? Do we need another season of The Mandalorian, or has this kind of run its course? Is there a different way it should manifest? What
I
do you
think
think?
we're going to have one more season at least, and if it's successful, we'll have many more. Um, the showrunners, the heads of Star Wars, both are big fans of this show. Like it is a pet project. They love it. They love being involved in it. They love telling the story. I think they feel like their hand got forced on this by higher powers, and they made the best that they could based on what they were required to do. I think they are probably more than halfway through writing next season because I feel like they were chomping at the bit to say, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! This story, these characters have a lot more to them than what we've been allowed to tell." And so I think that they're going to do their best to have a new season that will, and I think we've got over a year before we get that, maybe a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. Because I think they're going to do their best to land something that's very, very good, that isn't forgettable like season 3, because they've got enough feedback from all of that. I think we're going to see them trying to add to Star Wars lore. And I think season 4 was meant to do that because, like I said, they were going to have heavy Empire involvement, which we hadn't had a lot of. Thrawn was going to show back up. We're going to get a lot of the Rebel
Mhm.
showing up. Yeah, I think we get another season, and I think it's going to be a little different than what we've had so far. I think it's going to plug more into the larger Star Wars story. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it needs to do exactly what you said, in order
Yeah,
for it
yeah,
to continue to evolve, or we need to see some kind of change in the dynamics because it it has kind of I think season 3 felt kind of stale and
I you make
like
a great point, man.
like we said about the movie too, like, yeah, it was fun to watch, it was entertaining, and kind of like Solo, ultimately kind of forgettable.
Yeah,
And I think we need it to be a little more compelling than that, because that's what
yeah,
this series originally had, is that it was uh, it was not feeding into the larger Star Wars narrative necessarily, but it was exploring the universe. What else was
right.
happening outside of, like, what it means to be a Skywalker, you know? And
Yeah,
so I think that was interesting. That was fun.
yeah.
That was something unique. And I think we need to see some movement from the formula a little bit in order for it
Completely.
not to feel
Yeah,
stale.
I completely agree. We need to move from the formula. We need to plug into the larger storyline to give it a little more meaning and a little more energy, a little more like gravitas. We can plug into that bigger Empire versus Rebel story. I think it gains a new momentum. So, well, listen, it was a great watch, but it was what it
Yeah.
was. You know, like you said, 3 months from now, I'm going to go. I, there was
Did
I watched a
did I
Star
watch
Wars movie
that?
this year. I'm pretty sure there was. What did we? Was that
When was that?
theaters or was that
May
what? Was that in
May
theaters or was
4th?
it just one?
Yeah.
Was it just one
Yeah.
long episode? I can't remember. But I feel like I watched one. Yeah, I'm with you. But listen, we need something for next week. You and I talked before the show. I don't know how we don't cover a Steven Spielberg sci-fi, right?
We've got to, man. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how he
So
made a name for himself. Sci-fi, you know? We
exactly,
forget it
exactly.
sometimes. Yeah.
Amblin, man. Disclosure Day comes out. There's been lots of great early kind of like talk about it, It feels like it's going to be. I'm trying to remember who it was. There was one reviewer who, has I respect to a degree, who basically said it might be his best sci-fi ever. Now that's
a big claim, man, because like Jurassic Park's in there, like better than Jurassic Park.
Right.
I don't know.
There's
I don't want to. I can't go in with that high of expectations.
Right.
If I go in like that,
maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't have said that. Maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, next week let's do that. Same bat time, same bat channel. So we hope you all will show up and join us. And saying that, we are thanking you for showing up and joining us today, because it's you that lets us keep doing this show, and it is our favorite part of the week. So thank you. And with that said, we'll see you next week on the Moonshine Jesus Show.
Moonshine Jesus.